Every parent's worst nightmare became a devastating reality this week, forcing us all to ask, how do we truly safeguard our children in schools? We need to be seeking solutions that resonate with fundamental values and deliver real-world results. Just this Wednesday, August 27th, 2025, what should have been a joyful back-to-school mass turned into just unspeakable horror. This was at Annunciation Catholic Church in Minneapolis.
Yeah, it's just awful.
The 23-year-old Robin Westman, armed with a rifle, shotgun, and pistol, all apparently legally purchased, recently opened fire right through the church windows.
Targeting children, it's hard to even comprehend.
Absolutely. This deliberate violence killed 2 innocent children, only 8 and 10 years old. 17 others were injured, 14 of them children, and 2 were still in critical condition last we heard. The shooter then died by suicide in the parking lot.
The shock in the community must be immense.
It really is. We heard from Danielle Gunter, a parent whose 8th grader survived being shot, making just this desperate plea for armed security in schools. You know, that raw cry for protection.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Completely.
Many residents described it as their generation's 9/11, feeling that intense loss of safety. So this tragedy, it just underscores this critical question. How do we prevent such acts? How do we protect our learning environments? Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into this really complex challenge of school safety. We've pulled together a stack of sources covering, well, everything from school policing and security tech to gun control measures.
Right.
Our mission is to examine these different perspectives, including some insights from a conservative agenda for school policing, to try and uncover evidence-based solutions aimed at creating truly secure and supportive schools for your children. Okay, so let's start with that first piece, the police officers in schools. Our sources show they have a massive impact on young people's lives, right? But there's this conservative viewpoint asking some important questions about how that impact is managed.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is that looking at the R Strait Institute's perspective, they're a free market think tank, and their conservative agenda for youth policing really emphasizes principles like limited effective government and a deep concern for fairness and due process.
Okay.
They point out that when police get involved inappropriately in school matters, things that aren't really crimes, it can actually cause more harm than good.
How so?
Well, it might unnecessarily push kids into the justice system, for one. It can also create these really negative impressions of law enforcement early on and even make existing racial disparities worse.
And how common are officers in schools?
The statistic is pretty striking. 43% of all public schools report having sworn law enforcement officers who routinely carry a firearm. So their role is undeniably critical.
43%. Wow. So if the concern is about inappropriate involvement, how do R Street's conservative solutions address that specifically? What are the practical steps they suggest beyond just minimizing intervention? Like, how do you promote positive interactions if trust is maybe already damaged?
That's a great question. It's not just about less police, but about better policing in that specific context. Their recommendations focus on policymakers, guided by these conservative principles, working to actively minimize law enforcement involvement for things that are really just, childish misbehavior, things other school staff can handle.
Keeping kids out of the system for non-criminal stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The focus has to shift to promoting positive interactions, building trust through relationships, not fear, and really importantly, actively identifying and reducing racial disparities that can crop up from police involvement in schools.
Right.
It's about making sure officers are seen as a resource, not the first call for every minor issue, and ensuring their presence is fair for every single student.
Okay, so that's the human element, the policing side. But often technology is seen as this critical shield, right? Let's pivot to that. What did our sources indicate about technology's effectiveness in enhancing school security?
Well, this raises a really important point. While technology is definitely vital, our sources strongly highlight that there's no single universal plan. You can't just install the same system everywhere and expect it to work.
Makes sense. Every school is different.
Precisely. Each school has to assess its own unique risks and needs to make smart decisions. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all approach. Security tech can range hugely, from basic access control and alarms to really advanced stuff like weapons detection systems and sophisticated surveillance cameras.
Are there any, modern trends you found that schools are really leaning into now?
Yeah, definitely. We're seeing a big shift towards cloud-based security systems. That means easier management, remote access.
Connecting to phones and things.
Exactly. Connecting systems to mobile devices for immediate alerts is huge. Also, high-resolution cameras for much better imaging. which can be crucial after an event or even for deterrence. The trend is really towards integrated hardware and software solutions that work together seamlessly. And even things like monitoring social media passively, of
Yeah.
course, can sometimes play a role in identifying potential threats before they actually escalate. It's about gathering intelligence for prevention.
Okay, this next area. It's often really, really contentious. And our sources give us a look at, well, multiple angles. Arming teachers. It's one of the most heated debates around school safety. What did our deep dive reveal here?
Indeed. And this section pulls together arguments from major teacher groups, law enforcement, but it also, importantly, includes that parent's desperate plea we mentioned earlier.
Right.
The opposition to arming teachers, though, is pretty widespread among those professional groups. For instance, there was a 2022 survey showing 54% of teachers themselves actually believe allowing armed teachers would decrease overall safety, not increase it.
So the teachers themselves are largely against it.
A majority are, yes. Major organizations, the American Federation of Teachers, AFT, the National Education Association, NEA, and even significantly, the National Association of School Resource Officers, NASRO, the SROs themselves, they oppose arming teachers.
What are their main reasons? What are the big concerns?
Well, they cite some really significant risks. First, the risk to law enforcement who might arrive at a chaotic scene and mistake an armed teacher for, well, an active shooter.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Then there's the risk to the armed teachers themselves, and of course to student bystanders caught in potential crossfire. And the training gap, it's enormous.
How big a gap are we talking?
Okay, so police receive, on average, 840 hours of basic training. That includes about 168 hours just on weapons, self-defense, use of force. Teachers receive vastly, vastly less training, even if they get some concealed carry permit training. It's not comparable.
Right.
And even highly trained police officers, their shooting accuracy drops dramatically in active shooter situations. We saw figures like Dallas PD having a hit rate of only 54% in armed confrontations, and Las Vegas PD somewhere between 23% and 52%.
That low, even for trained officers.
In those high-stress, chaotic situations, yes. So the expectation that a teacher could effectively neutralize a threat, especially when you consider that 3 out of 4 school shooters are current or former students.
Expecting them to potentially shoot a student they know.
It's considered unrealistic and frankly dangerous by these groups. And beyond that immediate danger, there's the argument that arming teachers erodes the trusting environment schools need. Students need to feel safe reporting concerns, and having armed teachers could add to their stress, diminish their sense of safety.
And then there's liability, I imagine.
Huge liability risks for schools. Insurance companies are often unwilling to cover practices involving armed school staff who aren't law enforcement. And lastly, there are documented cases, real incidents, of guns brought by armed staff being misplaced, accidentally fired, or even stolen by students. These aren't just theoretical risks.
That's a really comprehensive case against it from those organizations. Yet, we heard that desperate call from Danielle Gunter at Annunciation, that plea for something, for immediate, visible protection. How do we hold those two things together, that deep, understandable fear and the expert consensus on the risks of arming teachers?
It's a profound conflict, isn't it? Her call for armed security at schools to prevent another tragedy is coming from a place of immense pain and fear. It highlights that deeply felt need for visible protection for an immediate response capability. But it's important to note, while the organization strongly warned against arming teachers, her call might point more towards the need for trained professional armed security like SROs or dedicated security personnel, which is a different conversation than arming educators themselves.
That's a key distinction. Okay, so while that debate is intense, our sources also look at prevention from another angle, entirely broader gun laws. What does our deep dive reveal there? What kinds of proposals are being discussed to prevent these tragedies in the first place?
Right, so several sources, including organizations like Everytown for Gun Safety, the AFT, and the NEA, detail a number of what they call sensible gun laws as part of a more comprehensive prevention strategy.
Okay, like what?
Well, one category is extreme risk laws. You probably know them as red flag laws. These allow family members or law enforcement to petition a court to temporarily restrict gun access for someone who's showing clear signs of posing a serious risk to themselves or others.
Okay.
Then there are secure gun storage laws. These are about holding gun owners accountable if someone who shouldn't have access, especially a child or teen, gets their hands on an unsecured firearm. This is critical because unsecured guns from home are a common source in school shootings.
That makes sense. What else?
Universal background checks. The idea here is requiring background checks on all gun sales, closing loopholes like private sales or gun shows in some places that currently allow minors and prohibited individuals to buy guns without a check.
And didn't the Annunciation shooter buy their guns legally?
They did, yes, and recently, which underscores why proponents argue even current systems might have gaps or what other laws are needed in conjunction.
Right.
There's also a proposal to raise the minimum age to purchase semi-automatic firearms to 21. The logic is that many school shooters are themselves school-aged, often 18 to 20, and this could prevent them from easily acquiring assault-style weapons.
Okay.
And finally, the most direct proposals, prohibiting assault weapons and high-capacity magazines altogether. The argument is these weapons are designed specifically to inflict mass casualties very quickly, and banning them could reduce the number of deaths and injuries when shootings do occur.
So a range of legislative approaches being proposed there. Shifting focus a bit beyond the immediate security measures and prevention debates, our deep dive really brings home the immense human cost, the lasting trauma on young minds. It's sobering.
It truly is. School shootings leave these deep, long-lasting scars that go far beyond the physical injuries. When we talk about the mental health crisis, the numbers are just stark. Think about this. Over 100,000 American children attended a school where a shooting occurred in just one school year, 2018-2019.
100,000.
And research shows a measurable impact. There's a 21.3% higher rate of antidepressant use among youth who attended schools near a fatal shooting in the years following, compared to kids farther away.
That's a significant, tangible long-term impact, something many might not think about beyond the immediate headlines.
Exactly, and it ripples directly into their education. Shootings cause drops in student enrollment, drops in average test scores. Students who are exposed experience a 12.1% increase in absent days, a nearly 28% increase in chronic absenteeism. They're more than twice as likely to have to repeat a grade.
Wow.
And economically,
The long-term economic consequences are profound. Survivors are less likely to graduate high school, about 3.7% less likely to go to college, 9.5% less likely to get a bachelor's degree, over 15% less likely. That affects their whole lives.
absolutely. They're also 6.3% less likely to be employed in their mid-20s and face lower earnings. It adds up to an estimated $5.8 billion per year in lost lifetime earnings across all survivors.
Just staggering. And you mentioned earlier, so much of this trauma is intensified by losing trust, right? Trust in the school's ability to keep them safe. What does that mean for the kind of support systems needed?
It means establishing trauma-informed crisis intervention programs is absolutely vital. These are approaches that explicitly recognize, understand, and respond to the impact of trauma. And, of course, ensuring there are enough mental health counselors, school psychologists, social workers readily available.
Right.
Interestingly, you also see discussions online, like on Reddit threads, analyzed in some sources, pointing to other factors like the proliferation of powerful brain-changing drugs. As part of understanding the complex causes, it highlights this really complicated mental health dimension that needs careful consideration.
And what about drills?
Yeah.
Active shooter drills are common, right?
They are. About 95% of public schools conduct them. But here's the concerning part. There's actually very little evidence they're effective in preventing shootings or saving lives during one, and there's strong evidence they cause significant distress, anxiety, and even lasting trauma for students and staff.
So the drills themselves could be harmful.
There's a growing body of evidence suggesting just that. Many experts and organizations are now urging schools to reconsider these high-intensity, fear-based drills and focus instead on trauma-informed emergency planning procedures like lockdowns, communication strategies that don't traumatize kids in the process.
Okay, so putting all these pieces together, the policing, the technology, the debates on armed staff and gun laws, the profound trauma, what does a truly comprehensive strategy look like? How do we build a secure learning environment that's more than just reacting to crises?
Yeah, it really has to be multifaceted. It's not just one thing. A key part is fostering what are often called safe and equitable schools. This includes promoting community schools, schools that act as neighborhood hubs, integrating social services, health services, right alongside academics, building strong partnerships.
More holistic.
Exactly. And it also means really looking at discipline practices and threat assessment programs to make sure they're fair and don't disproportionately impact students of color or students with disabilities.
Yeah.
Equity is crucial for safety.
Okay, what else?
Then there's the effective emergency planning piece we just touched on. Implementing basic but crucial security enhancements like good access control, knowing who is coming in and out, and making sure classroom doors can be locked from the inside. These simple things can buy critical time.
Right.
The planning needs to facilitate clear communication during an emergency, allow for immediate lockdowns, and ensure a rapid law enforcement response. But again, always through that trauma-informed lens, protecting well-being even during planning and drills.
And the role of parents.
Crucial, especially around parental awareness. Informing parents, consistently and clearly, about the critical importance of secure gun storage at home, making sure they understand the risks and how to prevent unauthorized access to firearms, because tragically, as we said, that's how many school shooters get their weapons.
This deep dive into school safety, prompted by those truly heartbreaking events at Annunciation Church. It just clearly shows there are no easy answers, are there? But maybe there's a path forward, rooted in thoughtful policy and real community support.
I think that's right. The sheer cruelty we saw targeting innocent children, it just forces us to confront this need for both robust preventative measures and strong support systems. We've touched on so much, from those conservative approaches to policing that emphasize fairness and limited intervention, to evidence-based solutions for technology and mental health support, to that really difficult ongoing debate around gun laws. Every single facet demands our attention.
And our sources really underscore the profound, long-lasting impact these tragedies have. Not just on the day, but on children's mental health, their education, their futures, effects that some research suggests are comparable to major national traumas.
Yeah.
So as we reflect on all this data we've discussed, from the 43% of schools with armed officers to that 54% of teachers who feel less safe with armed colleagues, maybe the final thought for you, our listeners, is this.
Yeah.
What is the true cost of inaction? And conversely, what hidden potentials do we unlock when we make building trust and comprehensive well-being the absolute priority in every single school?